No fucking intro needed
No.
on this podcast.
Okay.
Everybody, welcome to STR Unfiltered. You know who this is. This is Avery Carl, the queen, the goat of short-term rentals. And we were just talking because she's like glowing and looks beautiful this
Oh,
morning,
thank you,
as
thank
she always does. But you are actually training to get ready for the New York Marathon. You kind of blew my mind with that because I used to run all the time, but I was like a 5 miler. And I think maybe probably 8, 9 miles was the longest I ever went at one swoop. Bria and I would do that together. And I can't even imagine trying to go a marathon. So tell me about how you're preparing for that.
I am a runner. As a person, I consider myself a runner. Ran cross country all through high school. Mine and Luke's second or third date, I think, was an 11-mile run.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Up
you were
and
a soccer player too. They make you run a lot playing soccer.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. So I got into cross country just as like a side cross training from soccer. And so tried to, up until I went back to grad school, was running marathons. Luke and I would run marathons together. We did a 50-mile ultra marathon in Mississippi called the Mississippi 50. I don't recommend doing a 50-miler. That sucked. My favorite distance is half marathon. That's the most fun, I think. But yeah, getting back on the horse for it's time. The kids are old enough; they're both in school now, so we can kind of carve out that time to be able to train for it. Luke's does 2 or 3 a year. He's
Yeah.
always in marathon shape year round. If you
He's a
ask
fucking
him,
beast though. I mean, that dude's like
he's a beast.
running every day down there in the
Oh
heat of
yeah,
Florida.
yeah, oh yeah. Well, we both wake up at 4, he goes and does his run, which is, like, a minimum of 5 miles. Like, on Saturday, he did 20. But if you ask him, like, "Oh, I need you to run a marathon on Saturday," he can do that at any point of the year. He's crazy. I'm just kinda getting back on the horse, to do the New York Marathon 2025, so
What does your life look like now? So, I mean, it's your first you're in the kind of infancy stage of having both kids in school, right? And that's a life-changing moment for us as parents. I mean,
it is.
now you can have sex when they're gone, you can go eat and do whatever, you can go running, you can do that stuff. How does that really change your life as a mother? And I mean, I don't know that you travel quite as much as I do, but it's crazy because you speak a lot, you're traveling, you're doing all that stuff, you're running your 250 doors, the short-term shop, if anybody's never heard of the short-term shop, it's the largest fucking short-term rental brokerage in the entire world. How do you manage all that, Avery? And what changes when both your kids are in school?
It's a little less hectic, and they go to the same school, which really makes a difference instead of having to go like, last year, my son was in, like, a two-year-old program, but it was the opposite direction, so now he's in real preschool at
Like a
the same
mommy's day
school.
out type of
Yeah,
deal?
yeah. So now he's in, like, a real preschool at the same school my daughter goes to, so, it makes it a lot easier. So, I mean, the way we do it is we both wake up at 4. I'll go ahead and start working on, like, what I call deep work stuff, so stuff that I don't wanna be interrupted on. Do that until about 6 when the kids wake up. Luke does his run from about, I don't know, 4:30 till whenever. I do what I call
Well, if
the
it's
morning
20 miles, I mean, that's gotta be like 2 or 3 hours, right?
Well, he normally doesn't have to do a long run like that on weekdays. So weekdays could be anywhere from 5 miles to 12 miles in the morning. So I'll get the kids ready for school, get them like ready, get him breakfast on the table. Then he'll come in and take over from about like 7 o'clock and I'll go run. And then, get normally I have an 8 o'clock meeting, but sometimes I don't. So I'll get my run in, which is significantly shorter than his at this point in my training. And, then start the day from there. We both like to be finished by 2. We both, and our kids will probably hate this at some point, but right now they like it. We both go pick up the kids. We both go to whatever. I'm sure my kid's tennis coach thinks we are like so overbearing because the whole family comes to tennis practice. We got Max goes for 30 minutes, then Nash goes for 30 minutes, and Luke and I are like shagging balls and stuff. So he either thinks we're the best family ever or we're really annoying. So we all just like all do the stay at home traditionally stay at home mom stuff after school. So any work that needs to be done, any meetings are before 2 p.m. Central. If not, they can happen the next day.
Yeah, so for those of you listening, don't text, call, or email Avery after 2 p.m. every day. And I love that about you. You and I have talked about kind of like your travel 48-hour rule and that type of stuff. And it's funny that you bring up kind of what your tennis coach thinks. So my wife and I, when our girls were playing like high school soccer, we would go and sit up on the top in the parking lot and watch them practice. because we just want to be those active parents, and we're the only ones there. And I would have that. I said, "Honey, you think we're the only fucking crazy parents? What do you think the coach thinks about us?" Because they probably recognize she has a blue Tesla, I have a big Ford Raptor. I mean, once they see us and they know whose cars those are, right? So we'd park farther and farther away, and we'd walk because we also, the girls. It's one thing when they're in preschool, but man, when they get into high school, they get a little bit embarrassed about that stuff. But the time is so precious, and I think that's one of the things that I admire about you is your 48-hour rule, how active you are with your kids, both you and Luke. And I think that's something that just shows, what type of parent you are. And my Bree and I feel the exact same way and do that stuff as well. You use the term deep work and you do that early in the morning. What is deep work and why do you tackle that early in the morning?
So you never know, especially being in a client facing industry like real estate agent, mortgage broker. I mean, even running short term rentals, you don't know what the client or the guest is going to need or say or at what time during the day. So the traditional like time blocking doesn't really work when you're in client facing businesses because you don't know when somebody's going to need something. You can't say, "Oh, I'm sorry, your closing is blowing up. I'm in my 45-minute time block of doing this right now." You have to stop and handle that. So
Amen.
yeah, anything that needs to be done that could be interrupted by other types of emergencies during the day, like, I'm trying to think, any emails that need to be
You mean
answered
like
or
Brenna posting this morning, "Hey, DSCRs are at
yes.
under 7%." And I immediately text her. I'm like, "Hey, I don't can I refi my close that I'm closing on next week with you before I close?"
Yes, exactly. So, anything to do or like if I've got like a speech to work on, that'll be in the mornings because it's really easy during the day when everybody else is up and working and might need something from you to get those push those things to the side. So, anything that needs to be done that could be interrupted that doesn't involve other people gets done between 4 and 6.
So then how do you and I get 1,000% what you're saying about being in the service-based business, right? And I don't quite have probably as many people reaching out to me as they do to you. How do you manage that from, say, 8 AM to 2 PM every single day?
So it's typically not as crazy as it people probably assume that it is on the outside looking in. So, I'll just have whatever meetings need to be scheduled will get scheduled within that time period. And then, my phone is on if anybody needs anything. And my phone's on after 2 also. Like if there's fires that need to be put out, they'll get done. But just know like meetings will be scheduled after 2.
So what Avery's saying is she has plenty of time, folks. So let me give everybody her cell phone number. Just kidding. So it's kind of funny though. I mean, when you travel like you do, travel like I do, there's actually people that see how busy we are, and then they don't want to bother us. Do you get the same thing? At least that happens to me. Like, hey, I didn't want to bother you. I see you're with your kids, or you're busy, or whatever, and they just think
Yeah.
that you're not as accessible as you are because you are accessible.
Yeah, yeah, you can get me and get Luke, anytime, and I do get that a lot, like, "Oh, well, I thought you were too busy, so I didn't bother you with this question." I'm like, "No, I exist because of the question. Please ask it." So, yeah, I do get people that assume I'm not accessible, but I'm pretty accessible.
You're an amazing parent, but you're also an amazing, broker. And I want to kind of shift into the short-term rental stuff. I appreciate you opening up a little bit about your personal life.
Yeah, thanks.
I saw Brenna Carl's from the mortgage shop. I saw her Facebook post this morning. And I did send that to her because I'm closing on another property with her next week. And interest rates are obviously coming down. I'm surprised they're doing what they're doing with DSCRs right now. Personally, I thought that may not happen until after the election and we have a little bit more stability with that. But you mentioned something to me a few weeks ago when we chatted about just you haven't seen the real estate market, as bad as it's been, recently. Then I saw somebody yesterday or this morning post the Smokies, and they said there was 1,300 active listings in the Smokies.
Mhm.
So, what is your take on where we're at right now as an investor? And I'll kind of just preface and say I've been of the mindset that I've wanted to buy. I bought and sold more in like the last 5 months than I probably have in my entire career because I like buying at higher interest rates because there's less competition, there's less bidding wars, and I know that I can always go back in and refi. So if it cash flows today, it's going to be better when I can get it 5.5% or 6% if I'm at 7.5 today. So what's your take on the market and for the average investor right now?
Okay, yes. So, statistically, like, go Google this after if you're listening. The real estate market is the worst it has ever been in the history of real estate. So, fewer homes were sold in 2023 and 2024 than ever, than the entire Great Recession, everything. So, this crash that everybody is
And you're
expecting.
not talking just short-term rentals, you're
Yeah,
talking across
everything.
all homes. Okay, gotcha.
Yes, primary homes, everything. And so, all these crash bros are like, "Oh, the crash happened. We're at the end of the crash, actually. It just didn't do to prices what everybody wanted it to do to prices." So, but the real estate market has been terrible. And I'll get people who, they call us and they're like, "My agent that I'm working with, it's been listed for 6 months. They're not doing a good job. I want to come list with you." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I would love that, but B, I wanna preface this with, like, it's probably not that your agent isn't, like, listing it hard enough, it's that the real estate market sucks right now and nothing is selling. So, before you do that, just know if you come over and work with us, we will do our best to get it sold, but, like, the market is what the market is right now. So, I think we are coming to the tail end of that, and I've been saying for the past 2 years, the best time to buy is, starting, I guess we're saying at the beginning of 2023, I was saying, we the best time to buy is now. I think we've got probably maybe a month and a half left of that. And of course, everybody's like, "Oh, well, you're a real estate agent. You're always going to say that now's the best time to buy." Well, what's going to happen because rates are so high right now, things are sitting on the market. There's not a lot of buyer competition. So you can go negotiate deals without having to worry about all these other investors. When rates get down, and I don't think they have much further to go before we start seeing multiple offers on everything again. And when that happens, the prices are going to go up further. So this big waiting for price drops, like we're in the price drops, guys. We're there. So I really do think that the opportunity to not have to deal with other people in your negotiation with sellers is closing. We've bought a few things this year. I'm under contract on a one bedroom in the Smokies right now. So, it's just, again, it's very easy to say, "Oh, she's a real estate agent. She's always going to say now's the best time to buy." But I saw, I had clients in 2022. We were having to go 100,000 over asking with no appraisal contingency just to be considered. Now, I don't think it's going to go that crazy again, but the best time to buy is when you have less bullshit to deal with when you're negotiating with a seller. And I think we're almost out of that tunnel here.
So, is it a combination of lack of inventory, interest rates, election, kind of right now over the last 5, 6 months, and you think we're gonna come out of it right around election time potentially?
Yeah, yeah. So I think everybody's in this big wait and see. Of first, they want to wait and see what interest rates are due, and then they're going to wait and see who's going to be president. And what's going to happen is, no matter who gets elected, the next morning we're all going to wake up and move on with our lives like we have every single election. It's not actually going to change that much overnight. So whatever day after election day, what is it? November 2nd or November 7th is election day. Whatever. I'm not a political science major. Okay. Anyway, you're gonna wake up the next morning and you're gonna do what you were gonna do anyway, no matter who wins. So, I think we're still in this big wait and see period. But what's happening is, or what has also been happening, so we know there's not a lot of buyers happening in the market. So there's not a lot of buyers there, but also a lot of sellers who are not need to sellers, who are not fire sale sellers, aren't listing right now because they don't want to take a hit on their value so that it makes sense for somebody to buy it at the high interest rates. So I do think we'll see some better inventory come on as well, but I also think it's going to get snatched up pretty quickly.
So what do you think about I know you just sold one of my houses, a beachfront, property in Fort Morgan for me, and Jonathan in Gulf Shores, if anybody's looking for a great agent down there, he's done a couple of transactions for me in the last year and has been fantastic. But I know I have 2 mastermind members that have had properties, I think you represent both of them, and they've been sitting, like you said, for like 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and they're, I think, between 1.5 million to 2.5 million for these 2 properties. What do you tell people that are in that position now? Neither of those people need to sell either, right? I mean, they're okay. So the question is should they pull that off the market and wait? Or, is there a lot I know that you guys, and I'm not a real estate agent, a lot of people pull it, hey, let it sit for a couple months, then relist it. But there's still gonna be that record of, hey, it was listed at this, right? And then price drops happen. So how do you approach that with sellers with what we believe is impending in the next couple of months?
Well, we did get one of those under contract, and we're working on the second one right now too,
J
but
or A? Which one?
A.
Okay, awesome, cool. That's a
J,
great
we're
freaking
doing some.
property too.
Yeah, oh, yeah, that property is beautiful. So, what I'm telling people, because 'cause we've had a couple people, like, we've got one in the Smokies who's like, "Oh, we were under contract to sell his, and then the buyer didn't like the inspection, and now he wants to fix some things." My advice is don't pull it off right now, like, 6 months ago, maybe, but whoever if you pull it off and rates go down tomorrow, then you've missed that initial wave of buyers, even if you're like, "Oh, crap, let me get my house back on the market." So, my advice now is we're so close to these 2 big things that people are waiting to see what happens, the first rate cut and the election, that you're better off just leaving it on, and you wanna be on, you wanna already be on the market when that first wave of buyers comes through, because if you're not and you're waiting to see like, "Okay, looks like, oh, the news says the real estate market's moving again," by the time the news starts talking about it, it's been moving for a month and a half. And then you've got these other sellers who have been waiting to see also, and then they see on the news, "Oh, the real estate market is moving again, let me list." And then now you have more competition. So you wanna already be there when that first wave hits before the news is like, "Oh, the real estate market's moving again." So my advice for sellers right now, even if they've been on market 6 months, a year, just leave it on because the first wave is coming soon, in my opinion.
It could be happening right now with DSCRs going below 7%.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big move. So, I would leave them on, leave them up there. I mean, I would give you different advice maybe 6 months ago, but, leave them on. Just
I'm of the belief that we get a little bit of a head start over Joe Public, right? Because you have people like Brenna Carls, who's always posting this stuff, Parker Borowski, Easy Street. If you're in these Facebook groups, you need to pay attention to that stuff because what Avery said, I believe, is 1,000% correct. Those brokers, those lenders are going to post that stuff for us as investors. And if we're paying attention, we're going to see it before the general public has knowledge of that. So I think we end up with a 30, 45 day, kind of advance notice. Maybe not on other big investors and, big hedge fund money, but before Joe Public will start to dive in. Do you kind of see that lag as well?
yes, I agree. And I mean, we were on a team meeting this morning when that came through. And so we've got all of our agents who have all of their active buyers. I'm like, y'all need to text them right now and tell them this. Everybody, even your not active buyers, text every single person in your database and tell them this because people will get off the sidelines. And I will say too, something I wanted to bring up earlier when you mentioned that you've done most of your buying this year. All of the closings looking at all the closings that we've had this year, 80% of those people have bought with us previously, and probably an even higher number of those already own short-term rentals, but maybe just didn't buy the ones they already own with us. So, over 80% of our closings this year have been people who are experienced investors, which should tell you something that they know something. They know this is a good opportunity because they've done it before. So, I found that interesting when I looked at that too.
You still have a lot of those newbie investors that are probably still waiting for 5% interest rates, which just, I don't know how far off that is. I don't think it's going to happen in the next 5 to 6 months by any means.
Yeah, and then, I mean, the prices will already have climbed, I think, by the time it gets to 5, if it does, they're already gonna be higher, so, I mean, it's the same as the old adage, the best time to buy real estate was always yesterday, second best time is today. Tomorrow's typically always the worst time, there's always gonna be something that's more expensive.
I agree with you. So tell me about your one bedroom because I'm actually closing next week with Brenna on a one bedroom. I've never bought something that small before.
I love my little one bedroom, so we've got, a studio that we've had since 2015, and it's just crushed it for us, like, it does 65,000 a year, and so, we've
And you
looked
bought it
all
when in
over.
2016, so you paid
So
like $27 for that thing?
yeah, yes, they paid me to buy it.
Yeah.
So, we looked all over this year because we thought about, like, getting a lifestyle asset, let's get something in a ski market, and we spent, I don't know, 6 or 8 months. We were under contract on something in Taos, then Taos County started messing around with anti short-term rental
You know where
regulations,
you
and
should come, Avery.
yeah, and we're like, "Never mind." I can't get Luke to fly that far to that's almost to Canada.
Well, that's because you guys have to make 2 connections through Atlanta. If you guys still lived in Nashville versus down at the beach, it's
I
easy.
know.
Alright, hold on. I'm gonna invite you and Luke to be my guests in January. I have not announced this publicly. Let me pull the dates for you so you guys can come boarding and skiing with me. January 25th, 26th, 27th.
Okay.
I am going to be
Put it on my
hosting
calendar.
a ski and snowboarding boot camp at my new property. My learning center will be done, all that type of stuff.
Amazing.
You and Luke come. I'll give you guys my master suite. You can stay in my house, and I want to go skiing. And Bria will be there. We can go. Carl's and the Fates can go boarding or skiing together.
That sounds awesome. I appreciate the invite. Yeah, maybe we'll get back around to that ski property. So anyway, we've had some other things go wrong with our long-term portfolio, which we can totally talk about after this if you want.
Hopefully, not more fires.
No, no. I do have some things that I learned that are definitely applicable to short-term rentals. But anyway, we got fed up with like trying to buy all these things and we're like, "Oh, look at this. Look at the number of one bedrooms in the Smokies that are available. Let's buy some of these." So we're getting at least one because they've performed really well for us. And people who want to be like, "The Smokies is saturated." Look at the one bedrooms. Look at the studios. That bedroom count is not saturated. I don't subscribe to the anti-saturation rhetoric. There's a reason that markets get saturated. It's because they have enough tourism to support it. And I'm confident enough in my experience and management and ability to run a property that doesn't scare me. Because at the end of the day, in the Smokies, you got to get what, like 100 people of the 20 million that visit to book your property. And you look at it that way, it's not anyway. I'm not trying to convince people of not believing in saturation. That's just the way I do things. But if that's your concern, one bedrooms in the right markets. I wouldn't buy a one bedroom in like a
The top
Nashville or
10% are
Scottsdale.
never affected, Avery, ever.
Huh?
The top
What?
10% are never affected by saturation. And it's just like when you drive down any street, you can do it where you live, you can do it in Nashville, you can do it in Des Moines, Iowa, and you see a McDonald's, and then you see Taco Bell and Burger King and Wendy's and Kentucky Fried Chicken and Subway and Quiznos, and everything is on the same fucking street because it's the highest traffic street. The Smokies is still the highest traffic vacation rental market in the entire country. And it's probably always gonna be that way because of its geographic location, people.
Right. I mean, or any, insert any high volume market here. But it's really easy to add stuff to your portfolio, to your system that you've already built. And didn't have to, go build a new system anywhere. So we're like, well, let's just do this. We know this. Why are we trying to get crazy?
So can you tell me a little bit about your one bedroom? Where is it? What are you paying for it? What are you expecting for revenue?
So I can't tell you everything because I'm still under contract and I don't want anybody to go like be making backup offers or anything. But there's a lot of good one bedrooms actually available right now. So it's in the 300s. It needs some updates, quite a few. Which again, I've got the team there to go in there and do a new kitchen and do rip out bathtubs and things and make it look really nice pretty
How
quickly.
many square feet is it roughly? Under 700?
It's under 700 for
Okay.
sure.
So what are you looking to spend on that to renovate and design?
I mean,
30?
it'll be under 30. Yeah, that's the exact number that I was
So
about to say.
it's interesting. The reason I'm asking you, so I've never bought a one bedroom, but Bria's going crazy on ours. It's in Whitefish Mountain. The closest ski in, ski out that you can get to the number one lift, right? We're paying 579, but we're like literally gutting everything. And we're probably gonna spend probably 40 and it's 683, square feet. And I'll be happy. I'll be tickled pink if I can do 75,000, on that. I don't know that I can, to be honest with you, but the only advantage that we have is there's 54 units in here and every single one of them is Golden Girls, every one. And like I think 17 to 20 of them are HOA owned, which is kind of funny, and they sell fractions to it, like almost like a timeshare type of a deal. So we'll be the highest end, but I just don't know that I can, turn that into 700, $800 a night for a one bedroom.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're expecting to do mid-60s. And so for us too, like, we're at the point, and as you are, where it's like not every single buy has to be this like grand slam home run. A base hit is fine for us. So we're doing that.
But I think what you just said, Avery, is something that people, and I'm probably a little bit of the problem with this because of the super property thing, right? That people think they have to build this mega super property. So what's funny is I just bought, through my $3 million two houses on one single family, one property as my biggest purchase ever as a single family home, not multifamily. But then I'm backing it up with my smallest is a one bedroom behind it because I agree with you 1,000%. And I think it's great to have diversification as well. I mean, I know some of the markets you're invested into, and they are all not short term rentals. They are all not in the Smokies. You are spread out across the country like I am to have diversification of not only revenue, but, you know, God, if you think about there's so many people that are just in the Panhandle, hurricanes. We got a hurricane, I think, hitting Houston today. Is that right? Something Corpus Christi, that type of stuff. So how does that play into yours and Luke's model of investing, one from geography, diversification, but also to have larger homes down to that one bedroom?
So, we started with small ones and went all the way up to a 5 bedroom, and then now the next one we're buying is a 1 bedroom. Sorry, went all the way up to 5 bedrooms, back down to one. Right now, the way the market has been so bad that if we can find any deal that makes sense, we're happy to buy it. In terms of choosing markets, so we've just chosen markets with short terms. I think it's really important to choose a market that you're familiar with. So we bought in the Smokies in 2015 before it was this big craze where every influencer has houses in the Smokies and it's like this huge thing. We didn't know it was going to be that. We just knew we'd vacation there and this would probably work there. Same thing with Destin. I grew up going to Destin 30A. So these were just places that we knew. We knew the type of tourist that goes there and why and when. So we felt comfortable buying there. Because again, AirDNA data didn't exist I think AirDNA started the same year we did. So we just had to go on what we knew about the market. And same thing with our long term. So they're mostly in markets that are not too far from where either of us grew up. So we kind of knew exactly what to expect. Um, so, and in terms of the type of people that live there, the demographic that might be renting. So I think it's really important. And a lot of people get so caught up in, I got to go where nobody's talking about, that they just buy in these weird places that's fine to buy in weird places. By all means, buy in weird places, but choose a weird place that you know. So the example that I like to use is Starkville, Mississippi. I could be super successful there. There's an SEC school, not a good football team, but SEC school. I know exactly who comes to Starkville, when, why, what time of year. I know there's probably not a lot of infrastructure in terms of cleaners, but I know enough people from growing up there that I could be successful there. So, is it a place I would recommend for everyone to do it? No, because you don't know. Like, you don't necessarily understand who goes there and why, but I could. So, everybody's gonna have a market like that they're familiar with. And if the market that you know doesn't work, choose a similar one. So, if I went to buy in Starkville and find out regulations suck, well, Tuscaloosa is 90 miles down the road, and it's the exact same type of demographic and time of year and
Just a
why and
different
who.
school.
Yeah, it's just a different school. So, I
But
would
there would be a
start
big
there.
difference between those 2 markets versus going to, like, Meridian, Mississippi.
Oh god, yeah, Meridian is a shithole. Have y'all ever been to Meridian?
I've been there many times, actually.
We have to drive through there on the way to my parents' house, and it's just sorry for anybody who lives in Meridian or is from Meridian, but yeah. So, I think it's really important that you don't just, like, read a list from AirDNA that says, "Oh, this random town, Columbus, Georgia, is a great place to invest. Let me go invest there." You have to know so you don't mess up. I've seen so many people they'll mess up here in Destin, like the Panhandle of Florida, where it should be really easy. It seems really easy. It is really easy, but they buy on the bay instead of buying on the Gulf. And that's just a product of not understanding your market. Well, they're like, and they'll always from California. I'm sorry, Californians to put you, but it's always people who didn't grow up coming here. They're like, oh, well, the properties were cheaper on the bay, so the spreadsheet looks better. And that's true. But that's not where people go. And then they tell themselves the story. If you're ever having to tell yourself this story, do not buy the house. Well, maybe people don't mind driving 20 minutes to the attraction to have a cheaper property. There are shithole condos on the beach that they can rent for cheaper. They're not going to drive. So for me, back to basics, and I screwed up on this with a long-term apartment that we can talk about that I want to make a point with. But like, always buy the worst property in the best location. Make sure you understand the market you're buying in, and worst property, best location, add some value by rehabbing it or redoing it. Just like that works across all asset classes. And that is the way I will do it from now on.
Amen. I mean, that 20-minute drive isn't just for Destin and the beach, folks. That's Dollywood, that's Disney World, that is literally the ski resort, it's everything.
Mhm.
That location and proximity is super important. So, okay, so tell me about the, the apartment.
Okay, so yeah, I wanna just be, like, transparent about this because nobody ever talks about, like, when they screw stuff up. And so I used to get in fights with people on Facebook and things about investing for cash flow. And when investors would say, like, "No, I needed to have appreciation, like, where's gonna have the best appreciation?" I'd be like, "No, no, you idiot. It must be cash flow. Cash flow is the most important thing." And, and we're buy and hold investors, so that is important to us. We don't flip, we don't sell much. And so we bought an apartment building in the Midwest. And as the Midwest, for those who don't know, does not appreciate. When the different coasts in Texas are appreciating, the Midwest does not. It is not desirable real estate. And it doesn't mean that it's dangerous or not a good place. It just means it's not growing. People are not moving there like Austin or Nashville. We knew this. We didn't care. We only care about cash flow. Property worked, numbers worked really with across the board. Like every property you look at in this market seem to work numbers wise. And we're like, okay, this is cool. This is cool. We don't even have to do that much work. We'll just take these tenants that are already in there, start cycling them out when their leases are up, go in and rehab these units. We'll be good. Totally good. Cash flow is great. Knowing there will be no appreciation. We didn't care. And we've owned this property for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years now. And what's happened has been completely outside of our control. So, which we didn't plan for. The big apartment complex across the street, that guy let it completely fall apart to the point, it's drug dealers, it's crime, it's now condemned by the city. People are not allowed to live there. So it's people who are not supposed to be living there. And of course, that is migrating across to our property that we do take care of, that we do try to have good tenants in. And we've had people move out because they don't feel safe. We've got now crime coming across the street. We just had to replace every single window in a 10-unit apartment building because people from across the street came over and broke them. They break in, they tear things up. Like we've already rehabbed several units. They'll come in, we have to rehab them again because they come put holes in everything. It's like terrible. The police don't care. The police do not care about upset landlords, okay? Like that's just never going to be a scenario. So finally we're like, you know what? We're done with this. We do not have time, the mental capacity to be dealing with this anymore. And so we're going to go sell it. We're under contract for $100,000 less than what we paid for it. And this is, a learning experience for us when you invest only for cash flow and you don't care about anything else. There's a lot of things that would have kept us from losing money on this. And one of them would have been appreciation. So we bought at a time that had there been any appreciation, we would have quite a bit of equity in the property, but we only had about this much, just, the amount of rehab that we'd done. So now we're eating not only the 100,000 that we're under contract for less than what we paid, but we've rehabbed. I mean, we're probably losing $250,000 on this property because we bought in an undesirable area where the real estate does not appreciate because people are not moving there, investors are not investing there because cash flow is kind of the only thing that it offers. So now I understand all those more experienced investors that I was fighting with back in the day, like, oh, yeah, you got to have some upside other than just cash flow. And I don't want you guys to make that mistake when it comes to short terms, going and buying somewhere weird just because the numbers look great. There's a lot more that goes into what makes a good investment. And I had to take my medicine on this than what the spreadsheet looks like.
I really appreciate you sharing that. And because I think people think that people like you and me make perfect investments every single time, and we don't. I mean, I could tell a story right behind that of how I lost $126,000 on my second short-term rental investment. And it happens. Is that the same one that you lost the roof or had the fire like 9 months or a
No,
year
that was
ago?
a
That's a
different
different
one.
one?
That
No.
was a different one. Yeah. So we did have one burn down. Tenant burned it down with a cigarette. That one is getting to be finished. We should have it done in like the next 2 months. But
That was the Midwest complex too, correct?
yeah, that one's also in the Midwest. So that one's like, that one was actually the best building that we have, of course. So, and that's why I think a lot of people too need to understand you're not going to buy like two or three properties, whether it's a short term rental, whether it's an apartment building, and like be rich. In order for these types of problems, like losing 250,000 on this weird drug dealer property or one burning down, in order for that to not devastate you financially, you have to have scale. And so, people will ask me judgmentally sometimes, they'll be like, well, I mean, when is enough going to be enough for you? I'm like, well, I mean, in order to not put your family in a situation where that fire would have devastated you, you do have to keep going. You do have to keep going further past what you feel like is enough because you never know what's around the corner. Maybe it's the worst real estate market in the history of the world. Maybe your tenant burns it down with a cigarette. Maybe the guy across the street, I don't know what he's doing, but
You know who
maybe
asks you that bullshit, Avery? I don't wanna piss anybody off, but I'm
uh,
really good at it.
I have the answer.
It's underachievers. high achievers like us keep pushing ourselves, right? There's a reason Luke runs 20 miles because 3 miles is too fucking easy for him, right? And, we keep pushing. It's not that we need more money, not that what's it's that we wanna do bigger, better things, and we gotta teach our kids that too,
Yeah.
right? So I think those people just don't have the same mindset that we have. It's not just because we're greedy and wanna make more money. We want stability for our kids and our grandchildren, and, we also wanna do bigger and better things. We don't get complacent. Would you
Yeah.
agree with that?
I agree with that 100%.
I wanna kinda add something to what Avery was saying about just investing for cash flow. I mean, it was the early 2022 when I had the first STR Wealth Conference, and the motto was 30% cash on cash, don't settle for less. It was literally within about 2 to 3 months after that when everything started turning to what we've been living for the last 2 to 2.5 years. And there's really what I call the core 4, just to emphasize what Avery said. You look at cash flow, number 1. Number 2, you should be looking at appreciation, and I believe you should go back to, like, 17, 18, 19, scratch out 2021, look at, 22, 23 to get a realistic barometer of what, an appreciation run rate has been up to this point. We have no idea what's gonna happen moving forward. Then your debt pay down. I think people don't talk about amortization schedules of different loan types. And, we have 15% down, commercial 20% down, all the way to these people that are doing 40-year AMs, Avery, on interest onlys on a DSCR. Then they're cost sagging and they're not paying themselves equity, into like a reserve account. And then they end up with a property that's not appreciating in Des Moines, Iowa, or Ogallala, Nebraska, or wherever that is. And then the last one's the tax benefit. So I believe when you're running, as Avery refers to the spreadsheet, the performa, whatever it is, you got to factor in all four components of that. And then take your gross revenue. And I'm sure you see this as well when you're trying to sell a property and the seller says, oh, well, this can do 25,000 a year more than what I did. I didn't pay attention. So you need to tell them it can do 125, right? Stop overestimating your revenue, underestimate that by 10%, and then overestimate your expenses by 10%. Now you create this 20% delta. And I used to play professional golf, and on our yardage books, on the PGA Tour, there was one guy that made the yardage books, Avery. And if you've ever seen a yardage book, it has all our measurements and yardage and everything. And on every hole, there was always this measurement off of like these trees. And it was like 62 yards to a bunker, 50 yards to this pool across the fairway. And it was just in case you fuck up. And it was labeled with the acronym of just in case you fuck up. And here's how you get back into play, back into the fairway. At some point, and Avery just went off the rails with a bad investment. I've gone off the rails with a bad investment. And if you don't have the capital to be able to sustain like Avery does with what's happening to that property, you need to have that contingency just in case you fuck up, because it's inevitable that we will all fuck up at one time or another in real estate investing.
Yeah, yeah, and that's really important to understand too, guys. It's not if you fuck up, you're going to fuck up, and maybe it's your first one. A lot of people fuck up their first one and then they quit, especially in the past little while, especially I'm not talking to anyone in particular, but if you did things like take $500,000 HELOCs on your property based on 2021 numbers and go buy a bunch of other properties, like you're gonna fuck up at some point, so you need to operate as if you are going to fuck up. Like, don't get yourself in such a situation that one fuck up is going to ruin your entire portfolio.
I couldn't agree more. Avery, thank you for being on the longest podcast I've ever had on this podcast.
I'm happy
40
to do it.
minutes. I think like 27 minutes was the record prior to this. And I think we came up with the title for this podcast. It's going to be Just in Case You Fuck Up.
Yeah. I like it. I
Awesome.
like it a lot.
I look forward to seeing you next week in the Smokies
See you
at
there?
the boot camp. I don't think I've seen you for a few months. And then maybe we can meet at what's the name of that place that we met at with Bria a year ago? The something Shell or Schnooky something, right by your office. The second floor.
Okay. I was thinking Smoky, sorry.
What's
Shunk
up?
Gully.
That's it. Yep. We're gonna be
Gully.
there for fall break with my youngest daughter. So I'll
Okay,
text you.
cool.
Maybe we can grab a drink or something.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. Great to see you. Thank you for being here. Everybody hit up Avery Carl at the short term shop. She is the best in the industry. She's taking great care of me on my last couple of deals. I will be one of those return customers for certain. Thank you guys. If you've found any value in this, make sure you smash the subscribe button on YouTube, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.